when it comes to firsthand experience and what's going on in the talent wars out there in the hedge fund space. Ilana Weinstein joining us right now. She's the founder and CEO of IDW Group, which focuses on placing senior hedge fund and business professionals across the investment landscape. We should also point out that Ilana, later today, I think, is receiving the Harvard Business School Entrepreneurship Award tonight. First of all, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
We're going to come back to that.
Okay.
But I do want to start off on what Hema was talking
Yes.
about, which is really kind of what the churn is right now for talent out there, because we've heard so many anecdotal stories, people being poached from one shop to go to another. We've heard about some outrageous pay packages. What is the reality on the ground right now?
Well, I want to pick up first on one thing that you asked her about, which is why Weiss hung on to talent.
Mm-hmm.
I do think for many funds, there's a tendency to hang on too long.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily at the multi-managers, but in general, a lot of the single managers or other funds do have a tendency to worry about how that will look to LPs. And it'll destroy the culture, what have you. But you need to be really thoughtful about how you bring talent in and also giving them the tools to be successful and when it's time to let them go.
But on the issue of retention, of retaining some of those managers, I mean, if the performance isn't there, and it's very obvious that it isn't there here, I mean, what becomes a threshold for when you finally say, or when the bosses finally say, we need to cut this person loose?
Well, I mean, honestly, the P&L that they're capable of putting up or not putting up. And there needs to be time to help them transition and learn, particularly with a more junior person, help them what I tend to call have a couple of scraped knees and evolve from that. And give yourself a chance to get a return on the investment that you've made in that person. But after a certain point, you just need to make the decision to let them go and let them go somewhere else that maybe they'll be more successful.
It goes back to the idea that for these firms, their most important assets are their talent, are their people. Of course, there's an FTC ban on non-compete agreements, and that's got a lot of companies really pushing back, first of all, but also rethinking how they're going to do things. What does this mean for the hedge fund industry in particular?
That's a great question. There's a lot of talk about it. I think at the end of the day, it's questionable whether it will actually come to pass as a ban, as a complete ban. There are appeals, and I think what will end up resulting is a more watered-down version. But the industry will adjust. The same way it adjusted to having non-competes, people just waited, and guarantees were extended to reflect the sit-out period. It'll adjust, and maybe what it means is the cost for talent will be lowered because people will be able to start right away. But at the end of the day, I think that what drives these guarantees is more about the dearth of talent than the length of the sit-out. So my gut is they'll become more front-loaded. But there's one important point I really want to make. This is a ban across everything, okay?
Right.
It doesn't really work for our industry, Scarlett.
Why not?
Because if you think about what the ban is predicated upon, it's two things. It's one, that non-competes stifle innovation. If you can't work, you can't start a new business. And the second thing is that it makes you unhireable. Well, guess what? The biggest hedge fund launches in the past half decade have been individuals who come from firms with non-competes. In some cases, quite sizable non-competes. It certainly didn't hurt them. And with respect to being unhireable, as I said, the industry adjusts and waits. You can't be competitive and say, I'm just not going to wait. And then, the most senior people out there tend to be the ones that have the longest non-competes. But the big issue, really, is how this is unfair to employers. Because when the best funds are hiring someone, it's not just the guarantee. It's the tools, the training, the corporate access, the data, the mentorship that they're giving them. And then that person says, what, thank you very much, leaves, hoovers that all up and goes and competes.
But isn't part of the argument, though, too, is that there are already a lot of provisions in place that would prevent somebody from walking out the door with a lot of the proprietary information and even some of the training that they get. There are certain things that they can't necessarily take with them out the door already based on what the law.
Well, there's legal remedy for if you're taking proprietary information. We already have that. I'm saying something different. I'm saying we're taking someone we're taking you.
Yeah.
We're taking all the raw DNA that you are, and we're going to make you better. We're going to sit with you. We're going to give you tools. We're going to give you a mirror as to how you invest. We're going to tweak this. We're going to tweak that. We're going to make you the Superman version of yourself.
Right.
And then all of this time, all of these resources, that's not so much proprietary information. It's more the firm's investment in making you the best version of yourself. And then what? You're just going to, you say thank you and leave. I think what will end up happening is funds will find different ways to have alignment. If there aren't non-competes, we'll see bigger and longer clawbacks and longer and more comp getting deferred, which isn't necessarily a better outcome.
So is this why we're starting to see a lot more guarantees for talent? Is that tied to the non-compete ban?
No. The guarantees have been happening for a long time now. What the guarantees, and there's always been a competitive bid for talent. I think what has supersized it is the capital that has flown into the multi-managers off the back of poor long-short equity performance, where LPs said, okay, this isn't working for me. Let me give all this capital to multi-managers who will manage capital with less volatility, protect capital in choppy markets. And the reality is the best funds, the most developed, most evolved funds like Citadel and Point72 are either closed, and a number of others, but there really are only so many in that very rarefied category, or not really accepting capital very much. And so the capital flowed to other, let's call it incumbents, that grew between 3 and 8x in a 2-year period. And that really was, I think, what put more fuel on the fire of needing to hire and the guarantees that followed, which in some cases are not based on the reality of what the person is capable of producing.